Hello to you. My name is Jesse Johnson. This is about death, dying, immortality, the deathless. You start to die the second sperm meets ovum egg, or when you're conceived in your mother's womb. There is a certain amount of destruction, construction, maintenance of all physical living systems in the form of a body or multi-celled system. The body is maintaining composition and also decomposition at the same time in varying degrees. The body is composed of energy, 100% energy, a field of energy, and there are two main fields of energy making us up. The first and second life fields. Both are extremely complex systems, extremely complex. The body has no fear, 0% of dying. Fear is a mentally created thing and process. The body has only instincts to live. Instincts are systematic, not mental. Every single living cell has instincts to live. This is called life inertia. The inertia of life itself, not to be removed or moved from living or being alive. The only thing that has fear is the ego, or the false sense of being a separate self. Separate from everything, including the universe. In broken mental states, one can be a separate mental thing, entity, or self, separate from the body itself, making every form of suicide possible, along with every form of hate, evil, uncaringness possible. It is easy to learn about the coroner's perspective on death and body decomposition, but here I'll speak about death from a more spiritual perspective. Most people accept a soul, a spirit, and the like. There is the body's demise or body death. The body is made of water, dirt, air, sunshine, electricity, and magnetism. And turns back into these elements and energies. Yet, there is something else when the body dies. The second life field starts to move away from it. This is not something told to me or hearsay. It is something I've seen with my own eyes. We are composed of energy in the form of vibrations with their high frequencies. From a physics standpoint, everything is vibrations with their frequencies, subatoms, atoms, molecules, macromolecules, electromagnetic radiation, etc. Everything, buildings, cars, oceans, birds, everything is vibrations with their frequencies. Yet there are two forms of life, first and second life field systems that we are made of, and another. A form that never passes away, never decomposes. I know this to be true. This is not something I heard or read about. It is a direct cognitization without thought, thinking, or mechanical memory. A knowing different from all forms of knowing. It is the ego that is afraid to die. The ego has fear of not existing, not the body. The body has ingrained, interstructured instincts in every cell to stay alive. The body knows it changes in processes every split second and will one day pass away. It is the ego that wants the impossible. Remove the ego with meditation, and every form of fear vanishes. The deepest longing in the heart is to know. No, not book knowledge, not expert or authority knowing or knowledge. Death surrounds everybody from all sides. Whatever you do and wherever you go, you'll find death. In fact, all fears are shadows of the fear of death. Fear of death is one side of the coin. The other side is lust for life. A disease. This is a disease. The intensity of fear of life slipping away is proportional to the lust for life. The more clinging to life, the greater the fear. Fear is created. Instinct is not. The fear of death produces activities of all kinds among humans, where you live less and less, spending energy in safeguards against death. The fear is so embedded in your heart. How can life bloom? How can life blossom? In this case, I don't speak of near-death experiences. When you are dead, you aren't coming back. One of the laws of nature is all compositions decompose. The first and second life fields, as far as I can tell, are 99% compositions and will decompose into the base constituents of atoms, electromagnetic radiations, etc. that is composed of. Both the first and second life fields and its intensities happens over a lifetime course of 125 years, a long time. Death, on the other hand, happens over several hours. So, 125 years of intensity is compressed into several hours. All of your psychic, mental, and emotional methods of suppression, repression, lines of thinking patterns are useless to manipulate any energies of death. Your beliefs are useless in death. No matter what the case may be with you, from ultimate spiritually awake to the most degenerate, rotten, hellish states you've become, you still physically die. Nothing stops or prolongs it. Even if you live 50,000 years, you'll still die. You might have your say, but nature has its way. There are ways to look at life and death. From the external, such as chemistry, atoms, genetics, electromagnetic radiations, etc., and from the internal, from actually being a living thing, knowing life, experiencing life by being life itself. External is to look at life as an object. Internally, it is to look at life from being life. Yet there is the case where life is not looked at from the external or the internal, where death isn't the opposite of life, but death is the end of one long birth, where birth comes to an end. There is life which never comes to an end. It is not of the first or second life fields, not a composition of energies. When one taps into this life, so to speak, it is as though a door opened for a second, and one intuits, no, not through thought, feelings, emotions, mental, mind, thinking, etc., and somehow cognizes, so to speak, because there's literally no words, signs, or communications possible for this matter, that life has no end, no death, no dying, no terminal, no self, no ego, no person, no individuality, no personal separateness. I know this, not from hearsay or because someone told me or said it, or from a movie or a book. It is beyond experience, and then it melds down into a seeming experience so that one may somehow say something of the matter. For it, so-called it, is prior to experience. You must have information before you can have an experience. It is the case. Everything is internal and external. Hold on for a second, please. Everything is internal and external depending where you draw the imaginary lines. Existence has laws to everything. There is no exception. You must be enlightened, so to speak, to die conscious. Your soul of the second life field is being moved away from the first life field body when the body dies. I know this to be true, that the second life field moves away from the first life field at body death. I've seen this with my own eyes. You cannot die conscious if you die identified with the body and mind only. Death that is not conscious is one of the greatest of missed opportunities. Consciousness means there's no dark corners left within you. You don't die as a theory or intellectual proposition, but as an experience of letting go. To be conscious is the great death of the ego, the death of identification and unattachment with all and everything that's body-mind, the death of the ego. When you die conscious, you become aware of, true aware of, immortality, deathless. You die conscious when you belong to eternity and no longer belong to time. Life has mysteries of more than eat, drink, and be merry. Heaven is where you want to be, as though you're in the same state as the ego. To want heaven is, in fact, the greatest nightmare form of greed. For you want survival of an ego self, a seeming self within. There is no self within. The self-complex mental creation that considers itself to be a self of I, a me, is a mental construct. Fear of death is always previous to death. The fear of death is to be omniphobia. Fear of death is ego. Fear of death is part of life, not death. Fear is in time and space. Fear is associated with self-contracted feelings of being a separate entity apart from the whole, an emotional mood of the ego, grasping and clinging onto body-mind states. Fear can be transcended. Fear is created. Instincts to live or not. The fear of death can be transcended. Instincts cannot. To be identified with the conditional states is ego. Identification can be transcended. Your worst fear is the fear of true realization of the ultimate truth, not death per se. Your fear is based on ego, the loss of ego, which is the greatest of all fears, which would let you know the ultimate truth. It is to relinquish the very thing you are defending, which is the false you, the false I, the false me, the false myself, or ego. Fear of death is dishonest, very dishonest. Instinct is not. It is an impossibility to be separate and independent from everything else. Impossible. The elements of the body will be called back. The ultimate supreme being divine, the ultimate supreme being divine, which is all and every that be, has no body mind and transcends life and death, beginning and end, infinity, birth and death. Physical death cannot be won against because all structures are destructured over time. They are two poles of the same phenomenon. Never fear death, only live. That's it. There's only one way to the only form of immortality, deathless. The deepest longing in life is to know and live the deathless, the true immortal. That is by renunciation, to know the ultimate reality, to true realize the true eternal, the ultimate truth. The ego cannot reach this, cannot reach the sunrise of life, for this is the sunrise of life. Everything else is deception. Accumulating money, living through your children, religion, life after death, reincarnation, living for others, etc. All of it is deception. Immortality isn't the result of any action you may take. It is only covered up by the ego. The deathless is hidden by the covering of and by the ego. We arise from the deathless and not vice versa. Renunciation is to hold on not even to nothing in the first place. It is an inner, so to speak, letting go. It is not a matter of letting go of things, but the letting go of inner holding, the letting go of inner clinging to, the letting go of inner attachment to. You don't own anything. You own nothing. Nothing is yours. Nothing whatsoever. Not even the body-mind is yours. Nothing. You are made of chemicals. What can chemicals ever own? Ever truly own? Renounce the ego. The deathless showers on a true spiritual open heart. That is what the deathless showers on. A true spiritual open heart. The heart opens when there is no inner holding to any and all. No inner clinging to any and everything, person, process, etc. To let go of inner attitudes of clinging and holding. You must start living with true spiritual awareness. Awareness is beyond feelings or thinking. The fear is there only because you're clinging. It is not something simply happening outside of control, but an action your system is doing. Beyond every possible heaven and hell shines the ultimate reality. Heaven and hell are two sides of the same coin. So is greed and fear, pleasure and pain, etc. The scientist analyzes, divides, and takes apart. The meditator do not. Science sees as a complex machine sees. Meditators see as God sees, the whole, without parts, where thought, thinking, mechanical logic, and reasoning, language in words, signs, etc. cannot enter. The ultimate divine, not one, not two or more, not zero. I want to thank everyone for listening and watching. Please share this video, subscribe, and please have a very good and well-being day.